Joining me now is Wisconsin Congressman Scott Fitzgerald, member of the House Judiciary and Financial Services Committees. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. What does the Judiciary Committee want to see specifically?
Maria, I thought this was a layup. When we had her before the committee and had the ability to question him, I mean, you saw that. We went as far as to ask about the president's mental state. Is he, in fact, was there any demonstration that at this point he's somewhat senile? We all thought this was a slam dunk. So the idea that DOJ right now and Garland are kind of hiding this or not willing to comply is a little bit startling. And also, I think, underscores the idea of they know how bad this is. I mean, we've seen the president.
So they're hiding something.
Well, I think he's just been rambling and publicly. Can you imagine what that looks like behind closed doors in an interview in which they allow him to just talk extemporaneously off the top of his head? It's got to be really bad for DOJ not to comply at this point.
But what is this going to get you?
Oh, I think ultimately what we're trying to once again establish is that what DOJ did and what HER did was to hide things from the committee, and I think certainly make sure that publicly you're not going to see what we all knew what was going on, which is the president's mental state is certainly not a good excuse to just dismiss something that could be criminal, quite honestly.
I see. Well, House Speaker Mike Johnson obviously under pressure as Congress returns from Easter recess this week, putting Ukraine and the Israel aid package in the spotlight. Congressman, you were just in Israel for a week. What are your thoughts on Congress bringing this Ukraine-Israel bill to the floor this week? Do you think we'll get a vote next week?
Yeah, I mean, for myself, just returning from Israel, seeing what happened at the southern border there, with Hamas and the tragedies. We talked to some of the hostage families. And in the northern border of Israel, Hezbollah is right there on the edge in Syria. So there are so many different concerns in Israel, completely unique to what we're experiencing in Ukraine right now. So I'm almost disappointed that the two are being conflated. But, it looks like the speaker is trying to create some package. Whether or not there's enough support for it in the Republican conference is the big question, right? And we'll have that discussion tomorrow in D.C.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think this conversation about ceasefire is getting louder. The White House putting out its ideas on a ceasefire again. And, Israel is looking increasingly like the bad guy, even though it's been 6 months since the worst attack on Israel since the Holocaust. The president, however, and Chuck Schumer, the Democrats, have made it real clear that Israel is losing the PR war. Is that a fair statement?
We met with the prime minister. Prime Minister Netanyahu said, we will win this war. He was a little bit less descriptive on how far they were to go with Rafah. But I still believe at the end of the day that they know they're in a position to end this and end this quickly. It's kind of what President Trump has been calling for. And I totally agree that they should be able to finish the job here so that we and Israel are not dealing with Hamas down the road. It's something that I think has to happen and needs to happen very quickly at this point.
Well, nobody wants to see humanitarian humans killed, citizens killed in the fog of war. But at the same time, we haven't heard anything from Hamas in terms of releasing the hostages, have we? In terms of this idea of a ceasefire?
No, there's no doubt about it. They're still being held in the tunnels. We're not sure how many of those hostages are still alive. Certainly, they are being used as human shields in this war right now. And yet, the calls that Israel should, as you described, the ceasefire continue, which is ridiculous. I think that not only should Israel be able to, pursue all their goals when it comes to the war, but again, the U.S. should be standing side by side with them. Unfortunately, we're not seeing that not only in Congress, but kind of across this country right now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the media is taking a cue from the White House, but I want to move on to something you can actually affect, and that is the White House is calling this Mayorkas impeachment effort a silly, baseless stunt. They wrote this in a memo yesterday. White House spokesperson Ian Sams writing this: the effort is a complete waste of time that constitutional and legal experts have said is unconstitutional. Congressman, what are your plans in terms of this impeachment trial in the Senate?
Well, it is somewhat out of our hands in the House right now. But I can tell you, if you talk to anybody that's in the Senate, that Senator Schumer has a huge problem right now, and that is a political problem in which they are not willing to stand on the floor of the U.S. Senate and have a full debate about the border because they know they have huge issues politically about this, which is why Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats are trying to find a way of just completely avoiding the discussion on the floor and some type of quote-unquote trial. In the way to do that is by continuing to drag their feet. So I'm not sure exactly what the timing in the U.S. Senate is, but they have a problem because they don't want to talk about the border because now they know what's happening at the border.
So are you expecting Mike Johnson to bring this Ukraine-Israel bill to the floor, and are you going to vote for it if it's status quo? That is, no change at the border.
First thing it has to do is get out of the conference. So the speaker needs to make that pitch, and that probably will happen at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Quite honestly, I'm not sure exactly what the speaker has been negotiating. I think you would find that the rank and file members of the House in our conference are not aware of that yet. But like I said, this is not the first time that something's kind of been thrown in our lap. Yeah. And unfortunately, that means that typically the support is not there. So I'm not sure exactly where we're at right now. We will find out by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
All right. We will be watching. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Maria.